From National 9 News, this is Nightline with Hugh Remington.
A woman dead and many injured after a horror level crossing crash. A breakthrough tonight in the Olympic torch security row. And Victoria's spending spree, hospitals and schools the winners. Good evening. Also in the news tonight, in the AFL, a double blow for front-runners St Kilda at the Tribunal. And Hugh Jackman leads an Australian tribe down the Hollywood red carpet. But first, there have been serious level crossing accidents in 2 states tonight. The worst in the northwest of New South Wales has claimed at least 1 life. It happened near Barnba, about halfway between Narrabri and Gunnedah, on a service from Sydney to Moree. A 2-carriage CountryLink train ploughing into a car which had become stuck on the crossing. The 51-year-old female driver of the vehicle was killed instantly, the front carriage of the train ending up on its side. Some of the passengers were able to free themselves, but 4 were trapped for a number of hours until rescue workers could get them out.
Big bang, and he just tried to control the train. He didn't, and it just went over on its side. And we all fell, the seats just more or less crumbled, and we just all fell on top of one another.
The people screaming, and say, help, help. And lucky he didn't broke those glasses. Another way was probably more casualties.
20 people were treated at the scene for minor injuries. 2 elderly passengers, one a 73-year-old woman, were airlifted to Tamworth Base Hospital, where they're reported to be in a serious condition with fractures and spinal injuries. 2 others were taken to hospital by road.
At this stage, we've got FSG on scene, crime scene, and we've got Barwon detectives investigating it, and it'll be a matter for the coroner at a later time.
Meanwhile, Brisbane rail authorities are investigating a level crossing accident on the city's southern outskirts. An interstate freight train slammed into a car at the Logan motorway crossing in Parkinson, but it's not known whether the vehicle became stuck or was deliberately left there to cause the crash. No one was injured. The Australian leg of the Olympic torch relay will go ahead as planned after a breakthrough tonight in an international arm wrestle over security. Greek officials wanted to bring their own guards to provide protection, but that would have breached Australian state laws.
The Australian leg of the relay was looking shaky until tonight's breakthrough.
I have to say there was compromise from both parties, and we're particularly pleased with the support of the New South Wales Government and the New South Wales Police Force in ensuring that the torch relay will come to Sydney.
The International Olympic Committee was called in to referee the row after a day in which Greece and Australia failed to reach agreement over the torch relay's security. Greek officials wanted to bring their own armed minders to Australia to protect the torch. New South Wales said that wasn't on.
The New South Wales Police will not surrender that command and control responsibility.
Under tonight's agreement, New South Wales and Victorian police will be responsible for the relay's security in and around the torchbearers. The Greeks' job will be operations, such as helping light the torch at changeovers and reignite the torch if it goes out.
The torch relay will go ahead 4 weeks today, and importantly, New South Wales Police will of course have the role of security as was always intended.
The resolution was a relief, considering the announcement tomorrow of the 277 torchbearers to run in the relay through Sydney and Melbourne. But it'll be the last time the Olympic torch will visit Australia, with future relays restricted to the Games' host country. Overshadowed by the row, today's unveiling of the Australian formal wardrobe for Athens, the athletes declaring them cool and comfortable.
To experience the uniform and to be a part of it really makes me feel Australian and want to achieve, that ultimate goal for Australia.
Fiona Pye for Nightline.
With a week to go to the federal budget, Victorians today got their state version, with families and first home buyers the big winners. A record $10 billion will be spent on infrastructure projects over the next 4 years, with a major boost for schools and hospitals.
Despite the orchestrated leaks, there were still some surprises in Treasurer John Brumby's so-called family-first budget.
It's a budget which delivers in all sorts of ways to families right across the state.
With projected revenue of $28.9 billion and a surplus of $545 million, Mr Brumby unveiled record spending. Hospitals get priority, with an extra $1.6 billion over 4 years aimed at putting budgets back in the black and treating an extra 85,000 patients. And there'll be 900 more nurses. Another 250 teachers will be hired, with $280 million spent on building and upgrading schools. The worst kept secret, a $5,000 bonus for first home buyers, to be reviewed next year.
When you add that to the federal government's first home grant, that's $12,000, that's pretty good.
Road spending gets a boost, and there'll be a new push to convince Canberra to provide half the money needed for the Geelong bypass. Fines from speed cameras are expected to rise again after a small drop this year, but no plans to extend the fixed camera network. Police will get an extra $112 million, with $13 million for anti-terrorist measures. It's still more than 2 years till the next state election. This budget is clearly designed to re-establish the government after what it admits has been a difficult and politically damaging 12 months. And there's almost nothing in this document to embarrass the federal opposition as it prepares for the polls in a few months' time.
I'm struggling to find a single initiative that the government hasn't already announced in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So why have a state budget read out in Parliament at all?
David Broadbent for Nightline.
There have been more allegations about the abuse of a 94-year-old dementia patient at Sydney's Campbelltown Hospital. A woman in a neighbouring bed has described appalling treatment of the elderly patient and others as well.
Kathleen Moore has double pneumonia and should be in hospital, but after 5 days in a ward at Campbelltown, she witnessed enough to decide to discharge herself and take her chances at home.
Appalling, distressing. It was very upsetting to watch.
Mrs Moore was in a bed alongside the 94-year-old dementia patient and claims she witnessed heart-wrenching abuse.
She couldn't get out of bed. She was just a very old, frail woman. She couldn't speak English.
When the elderly woman slapped a nurse, it's claimed staff sought revenge with a feeding tube.
They put the tube down that hard, they put it into her lungs. I heard them say, "Get it out, you've shoved it into her lungs."
The 39-year-old mother said at least 2 other defenceless patients also suffering mental or psychiatric problems were abused and humiliated at the hands of staff.
There's no excuse to treat them like that or yell at them like that or threaten them with tubes down their throat that go into their lungs. It's somebody's mother, somebody's grandmother.
And concerns about a culture of cover-up at Campbelltown Hospital continue. Kathleen Moore said she was told by staff not to make a formal complaint despite what she'd seen. The minister and hospital were again in damage control.
If the behaviour is proven, the strongest possible action will be taken.
They are very serious allegations and we do take it very seriously.
The case in the hands of police. Christine Spiteri for Nightline.
The Australian workplace has changed radically in recent years. Unions today began trying to regain what they claim is some lost ground. Among developed countries, Australia runs second only to Spain in the use of casual workers. The Labor Council wants them given more rights.
Employers want flexibility, workers want predictability, and they'll battle it out in the Industrial Relations Commission for the rest of the year. The Labor Council says 6 months with the same employers should be enough to earn workers the rights that come with a permanent position.
I've been at the one place for nearly 10 years. I've applied for permanent positions 7 times and been knocked back each time.
They miss out on holiday pay, sick leave, redundancy entitlements and a sense of security.
When you walk out that door at the end of the day, you're no longer employed until you come back the next day or the next time you're called in.
Having security of permanency, especially at my age, because I'm basically unemployable and it's 53, would be of a benefit and a big relief to me.
More than 1 in 4 Australian workers are now casual workers, and that number's growing. Employers say it enables them to respond to the market, making businesses wealthier so they can employ more people. And they say that's why they'll fight this case.
It would significantly damage business, make them less flexible, less able to respond to the markets as they fluctuate. So that's our major concern.
It's important that workers aren't exploited so that employers can have flexibility.
Layla McKinnon reporting for Nightline.
Sydney motorcyclist Paul Myers claimed that riding his machine at up to 220 kilometres an hour helped him deal with the emotional pain of a close friend's death. His self-administered therapy today earned him 6 months of weekend jail and a 3-year riding ban.
While rocketing through the Sydney Harbour Tunnel at more than 210 kilometres an hour, the man police dubbed Evil Knievel covered up his number plates. Today, Paul Jason Myers arrived at court in a suit and left in casual clothes. But there was no disguising the fact he's going to jail.
Paul, do you think it was a fair sentence?
He's extremely upset. He's never been in trouble before.
The 31-year-old was arrested 3 months ago after police set out to corner a mysterious night rider treating the tunnel as his personal drag strip on at least 4 occasions. Sentencing Myers to 6 months of periodic detention and cancelling his licence for 3 years, Magistrate Maxwell Taylor said the thought of what would happen to him and other people if he came off the bike doesn't bear thinking about. Myers' lawyer claimed he'd been depressed after the death of a friend in a motorcycle crash and that the mad adrenaline rush acted as an opiate to the pain in his mind. Although Myers was showing no signs of contrition outside the court, his lawyer insisted to the magistrate that his client was sorry and had started to get a grip on just how dangerous and ridiculous his actions had been.
He cannot understand why there was this moment in his life of madness.
And with a conviction, Myers automatically loses his job as a security guard. Adam Walters reporting for Nightline.
Overseas now, and terror groups linked to Osama bin Laden have been caught plotting to attack next month's NATO summit in Istanbul. As Michael Usher reports, they've been thwarted by Turkish security forces.
In an immaculately presented spread for all the world to see, proud Turkish security authorities showed off the tools and instruments with which they claimed the terrorists were going to kill the world's leaders. Guns, ammunition, detonators and hard drives. A well-advanced terrorist plot foiled. The target was the Istanbul summit in late June, headlined by George W. Bush and Tony Blair.
They were planning to use remote-controlled bombs. They were also planning to use time bombs.
16 alleged terrorists were arrested in coordinated raids in Turkey. It's claimed they're aligned with the group Ansar al-Islam, an al-Qaeda franchise based in northern Iraq.
They've actually managed to capture something like 3 or 4 cells, maybe more, because normally a cell would be 3 or 4 people.
Along with the seized arsenal, 4,000 video CDs, al-Qaeda training instructions featuring Osama bin Laden. Terrorists killed 62 and injured hundreds last November in Istanbul when they bombed a synagogue, the British Embassy and surrounding Western businesses. Summit organisers insist this bomb plot has been completely neutralised and that security was already going to be intense for the expected leaders of 50 countries. Michael Usher for Nightline.
And ahead on Nightline, criminal charges against the US soldiers who abused Iraqi prisoners. And how stem cells can give us brand new teeth.
If you feel like the odds are stacked against you, call Trilby Misso Lawyers now. And get the right people on your side. Call 1800 800 813.
If it's expert advice and the right price, we've got it. We've also got this Breville Big Loaf bread maker for just $99 and this DeLonghi steam coffee maker at a red-hot price of $68.
Retrovision, we've got it!
On Sunday, the 7th of December 2003, Daniel Morecambe was abducted from a bus stop on the Sunshine Coast. 2 men in an old blue car, similar to this, were seen with Daniel just minutes before he was abducted. If you have any information at all about this car, please call Crime Stoppers. No one will ever know you did.
It's not too late if someone's seen Daniel.
Waiting your time, dreaming of a better life. Brad and Jen's marriage crisis, jealousy over man-eater Angelina tears them apart. Bulldog sex scandal, girlfriend tells all. Russell and Danielle try for baby number 2. Jade and Lesky's mum gives up her fight. And 9 free knitting patterns and a bumper Mother's Day issue.
It's your day, a woman's day. I know what it is.
Zero sugar, max taste.
This is Nightline. It was a criminal act guaranteed to play into the hands of America's worst enemies. Now 6 US military police officers face criminal charges over the abuse and possible torture of Iraqi prisoners in Baghdad. Their superiors are also in strife.
American military leaders knew all this had happened back in January but hoped it wouldn't leak out. Now more horror stories. An internal military report into the photos describes even more abuse. It says in the final few months of last year, US soldiers kept male and female prisoners naked for hours, threatened male detainees with rape, and forced naked males to wear women's underwear. The report's critical of Brigadier General Janice Karpinski, controller of most of Iraq's prisons. Unusually for a serving military officer, she's speaking out and claiming military and possibly CIA intelligence officers encouraged her less experienced military guards to carry out these sadistic acts.
Somebody was giving them instructions. Somebody knew what techniques they were using.
Sergeant Chip Frederick, one of those facing court-martial, proudly sent emails home last year explaining how they were helping the professional interrogators. Military intelligence has told us, great job, he wrote. We help getting the prisoners to talk with the way we handle them. In the United States, Robert Penfold, reporting for Nightline.
Meanwhile, 2 days after making his successful break for freedom, American Thomas Hamill has spoken for the first time about his 3-week hostage ordeal in Iraq. The contractor has reached an Air Force base in Germany on his way home to Mississippi.
Thank you for your interest in me and my story. I am very glad to be back on an American installation, but looking forward to returning to America. First and foremost, I would like to thank the American public for their support of all deployed in the Middle East. Please keep your thoughts and prayers with those who are still there. I am feeling well and having few problems with my injury. I'd like everyone to know that I have received care, and I am looking forward to reuniting with my wife in the morning. And thank you so very much, and God bless.
2 Americans and 3 Italian civilians are known to be still held hostage, with the whereabouts of several others unknown. A medical development in Britain will put smiles on a few faces. Scientists at London's King's College believe they've developed a technique to grow replacement teeth. They've already done it in mice. Human trials could begin within 2 years. Using a person's own skin or hair, they plan to cultivate stem cells and trigger them to become teeth, which can then be implanted in the jaw. The researchers say it would then take about 2 months for the new teeth to grow to full size. Medical researchers confronted with a steep rise in the number of Australian children suffering asthma have developed a new method to determine which ones will carry the condition into adulthood. Doctors say it helps them target prevention treatments at those who need it most.
8-year-old Jack Finnegan was diagnosed with asthma as a toddler.
His lungs had expanded to such an extent that all his organs had been pushed down to a much lower point than where they were supposed to be.
Asthma is also a daily challenge for 9-year-old Montana, spending 100 days in hospital last year.
I can't breathe. Sometimes one night I'm just wheezing and I can't even get a breath in.
Her parents and sister monitor her breathing every night. Montana's school a vital link in her asthma management.
They know exactly when she's having a bad day, just by the look of her. They ring the ambulance straight away if needed.
Their parents wonder if they'll ever grow out of it. Now, for the first time, Sydney researchers have developed a way of predicting that. After following asthmatic children for 17 years, the Woolcock Institute has identified 5 key risk factors: abnormal lung capacity, a persistent wheeze, lungs reacting to specific laboratory tests, a positive skin allergy test, and being female.
If someone was to have all 5 of those factors, they would be 36 times more likely than the average to have asthma in adulthood.
Currently, 1 in 10 adults have asthma, but latest figures show there's an increasing prevalence of what's called late onset asthma, people in their 40s and 50s. The predictor test could change that.
It is a breakthrough. It's allowing us to target those high-risk groups.
Cheryl Taylor for Nightline.
To business news now, where St George Bank has announced a bumper half-year profit. Here's finance reporter Oriel Morrison.
St George says strong home and business lending has helped it to top market forecasts with a 19% rise in first half net profits to $354 million. The 33% increase in its dividend impressed the market the most, a jump to 60 cents for the half year. The bank also increased its annual profit growth target, saying it expects home lending growth to outstrip its rivals. Elsewhere, shareholders in Aristocrat Leisure were in for a surprise after former chairman John Ducker didn't show up to the annual general meeting, even though he was up for re-election. Nevertheless, shareholders voted him out. He said last year he would resign, but then held out for a $500,000 payment, which the poker machine maker says it legally has to pay.
The advice to the board is clear and unequivocal, and unless there is very clear legal reason not to do so, the board has to act in accordance with it.
Also today, Aristocrat told shareholders it made $8.5 million in the first quarter, compared with a loss of $36.5 million a year ago. On the markets, a stronger day of trade, the All Ords ending up 10 points, the ASX 200 index up almost 9. St George, the standout in the banking sector, jumping 7%. Air New Zealand also having a strong day, up 5.5%. And moving into the black just before the close of trade, Aristocrat Leisure. Telstra, though, ended the day lower. And that's all the local finance news.
And on overseas markets, Tokyo was still closed today for a public holiday. London is trading 38 points higher. Gold is fetching $390.95 US an ounce. And the Australian dollar is stronger against the greenback tonight, buying 72.62 US cents. It's up against the yen, but down against the euro and the pound. After a glittering stint on Broadway, Australia's Hugh Jackman is back on the red carpet in Hollywood for the premiere of his blockbuster horror movie, Van Helsing. 2 other Australian actors are also boosting their credentials with the film.
On a warm night in Hollywood, no one was hotter than this man. Hugh Jackman and his wife Deborah felt right at home in the heat and under the spotlight. What's it like being out with a guy this ugly?
It's tough, but somebody had to do it, you know? I took the job.
They were in good company. Aussie star Richard Roxburgh plays Dracula in Van Helsing. What he really wanted, though, was a pair of thongs.
Well, it's mad, isn't it? I mean, apart from the fact that it's about 900 degrees Celsius.
No, it's hot, isn't it?
It's like the opening on Venus or something.
David Wenham also made his first appearance in a $150 million flick, and clearly all the Aussies were just as hot on the set.
All of them Australians. As you know, Australian people is really...
They're handsome?
Well. Oh yeah, all of them.
Hugh Jackman is already on the way to superstardom, and if this film does big business, he might very well take the rest of the Aussies in the cast with him. Whether they go or not is a different story. Would you give all of this up for the Swannies to win a premiership?
Oh, that's a silly question. Of course I would.
Hugh Jackman doesn't care who's in the final. He's just looking forward to a beer and a meat pie.
I've got a date at the G at the end of, so I'm going to go and got to be home for the grand final, and I want to be there. Deb's going to make a film, so I'm really excited about coming home.
In Hollywood, Carl Stefanovic reporting for Nightline.
Nightline sports news after the break, including Queensland's Darren Lockyer out of Origin 1. And a fiery crash at the Superbikes.
Want to lose weight now? With Weight Watchers Time for Success, you could lose up to 6 kilos in 6 weeks. Get started with Weight Watchers' great new trial pack. You get all this, including a free cookbook and free meeting for just $33. Call 131997 now.
If it's expert advice and the right price, we've got it. And we've also got a big colour catalogue that's packed with stacks of bargains out now. So race into your locally owned Retrovision store right now.
Retrovision, we've got it!
I'm Nostradamus. You must be Mitch.
Yeah, the Solara. It's absolutely packed full of features.
I knew you'd say that.
Sports mode auto.
I know.
Front and side airbags.
I know.
Climate control.
I know.
Power windows and cruise control.
Really? Only joking.
I know. Alloys.
I know.
Rear spoiler. That'll be
$29,990.
Good night at the dish leakers.
It's history in the making with the feature pack Solara for $29,990. See your Mitsubishi dealer yesterday.
How long would it take you to iron 10 shirts?
10 shirts? Oh, I've got no idea. Too long. 3 months. None of your business. 2 seconds.
I haven't finished yet.
Well, the new Tefal Express steam generator has twice the steam power of a normal steam iron. So you can get through your ironing a whole lot faster. The Tefal Express steam generator.
You could have told me about it before.
Tefal brings out your best.
What do Rams customers think about refinancing?
We originally had our loan with the bank and we got to a stage where we weren't happy with their...
bureaucratic red tape.
Yeah.
And we just found it so much easier with Rams that they... you can trust what they're saying. We've had 8 happy years with Rams and I'm glad we gave the banks the flick.
Call 13-RAMS today. That's 137267.
The AFL Tribunal has done tonight what no one on the field has been able to do this year. It has landed a severe blow against St Kilda. The competition leaders have had 2 of its stars suspended, including captain Lenny Hayes.
St Kilda captain Lenny Hayes should be smiling with his side undefeated, but his mood was a dark one after he was found guilty of striking lion Tim Notting. After viewing video footage, the tribunal felt it was a reckless act, not just a glancing blow. Sitting on 99 league games, Hayes will miss the next 2 weeks against Fremantle and Collingwood. Teammate Justin Kazitsky will also be out of the Perth clash, the tall forward suspended for a week for tripping Mel Michael. In evidence, Kazitsky believed at no stage did his right leg follow through in a sweeping action. The tribunal disagreed. But better news for...
In turn will also help your mind, your moods, and your attitude. Mind, Mouth, Moods, and Attitudes is a 4-part teaching available now along with Joyce's book, Me and My Big Mouth. Simply write to Joyce Meyer Ministries or call the number on your screen or log on to joycemeyer.org.
In a world of hectic schedules, busy families, and little time, where can you find much-needed moments of inspiration, encouragement, and hope? Introducing Lifelines, Insight, Inspiration, and Wisdom by Dave Meyer. A powerful compilation of thoughtful quotes, encouraging ideas, and life-changing teaching, all in a remarkably easy-to-read collection of short concepts you can take anywhere and read anytime. In today's society, you need God's wisdom on a daily basis as you face decisions of every kind. Discover a sense of purpose, find inner strength, and receive the guidance you need as never before. Over the years, in his leadership role at Joyce Meyer Ministries, Dave Meyer has learned the answers to the everyday challenges